On today's episode, we continue working on the Miata's interior, starting with new gauges. That's right, we are redoing the gauges today, and I am so excited for this episode. I have been looking at RevLimiter's gauges longer than I've owned this car, and I have changed so many times on what type I'm going to do. I've probably picked out half of them before and changed every 6 months, but I'm finally going to do it in today's episode. So before I reveal which ones we're going with, first thing we need to do is take the old ones out. Now this steering wheel surround, we're going to come back to it later this episode. I have an idea. That might be a little bit of a callback to a previous episode. Moment of truth. I bought a new one of these, but we're going to see if this actually breaks apart or stays together. So we'll see here. Mind you, I've never taken this out. Oh! That just hurts your soul. We definitely have some breakage. It looks like there are 3 clips up here. 1, 2, 3. 2 of the 3 broke. So, I mean, I could probably reuse this, but it's only a matter of time until this center one went. Gauge pod is out. Now that wasn't too bad, fairly quick to do that. There's a bunch of tutorials on how to do it as well. This speedo cable for me, it wasn't really latched at all. Honestly, I just pulled on it and it came apart. Now I'm going to be replacing the speedo cable because I did have the speedo bounce during while driving around. It's gotten progressively better. When I first had it, it was terrible, and it came and went, but since we're in here, we'll be replacing that. And there's also something else that we're going to be doing along with this, and that is fixing the horn button. When we first installed the horn and the new steering wheel, it worked, and then it stopped working like they normally do. And I went in and I thought I fixed it with some soldering on one of the cracks, and it worked, and then stopped working again. So during this whole dash in and out, we're going to be doing that as well. But first, this. Alright, so we are in our kitchen here, and believe it or not, this is probably the easiest place for us to film this endeavor, doing these gauges, just because of the light, the space, the clean space here. Anyway, let's get into the gauges that I got here. Packaging that he does, you know, it's his car on this sticker. The attention to detail here is just really cool. Here's what you get. Look at this. Is this not the coolest business card you've ever seen? These are actually the same gauges that Stefan got. Of course, you get a bunch of cool stickers, a thank you, Dylan. I mean, come on, what is not to love here? Little Civic. Santa's getting drifty. Yeah, buddy. So if you couldn't tell by that little reveal there, those gauges are RevLimiter's prototypo style. At least that's how I think you pronounce it. Now, a bunch of us here in the Rochester community has these gauges. Stefan, he has a set. I'm trying to remember the name of them. Cam just got one. Euler, I believe the name is. Really, really cool. Joe Thomas, the supercharged Miata that we reviewed, he's got revolvers. I, for the longest time, thought I was going to go with the Rosa versions, but at the last minute, I went with these, and the reason being was the smaller steering wheel really impedes your view of the gauges, and that's what these ones are designed around. So you can actually see the majority of the gauges with a smaller steering wheel. I loved that. And I loved having the tachometer be at like a different place than stock. And I really do like the stock design for the most part. So it's kind of nice having, you know, a similar design that's just a little cooler. It's got a little more color to it. And it's also positioned in a totally different way. So these are the gauges that I'm going with. Let's install them. Oh, and before I forget, this is really not like a how-to. If you want to do a how-to, there's a bunch of them online. But honestly, Miata Dad has done this, and he's done it the best, by far. I'm actually following along on his guide as I'm doing this. This is really just more for entertainment to take you along my build this winter. So if you're looking for like an absolute like how-to after watching this video, I would recommend watching Greg's video on it. He does a great job taking you step by step, so definitely check that out. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off this plastic here and really just separate from here to get to the gauges. Now, I do have this chip. Stefan's got one laying around, so I might replace this at a later time. You can't see it when it's in the bezel. I had no idea until I took it off that it had this, so I might replace this. Also, you're going to find out I'm not going to be able to fully do this until the spring. The reason being is we're actually going to have to set some of these gauges and kind of zero them out, or making sure that the tach is reading correctly. So you really need to like put these in the car, turn it on, getting it up to operating temp, put in a full tank of gas to kind of zero these out. I'm not going to be able to do that this winter, so it's something I'll have to do in the spring. So it's okay if I don't address this right away. I might do it in the spring as well when we have to take these out to kind of zero those in. So no worries. So that was kind of tough, not too terrible. Really the trick is the tabs, you gotta get a couple in. You kind of gotta break it away, peel it back, and then hold it while you get a couple. Because once you take, 3 out or so, the rest will come out easily. It kind of like relaxes, takes the stress off of all those clips. Because all the other ones are kind of forcing it in to kind of stay connected. So check that out. It's kind of crazy. Also, I don't know what's going up here on the bottom, but it's kind of weird. It's like there's like these spider web-ish, frozen looking things. They're not spider webs, and it's not frozen, but it's just kind of weird looking. I don't know how well you can see that, but it just looks weird. I don't know. We're going in. Alright, don't do that. No, in all seriousness, I watched a bunch of videos, obviously Miata does as well, and pretty much everybody's came off so easily. These were really, really snug and just did not want to come off. step, we actually need to break this whole area apart. Light needs to like come in there. I guess it's not being lit up, and we need to scavenge light from other areas. I think it's because the bottom of the tack sits underneath here, so it only have the top of the tack shown. So we're basically just gonna like remove all of this here. So I've tried a number of different techniques here. Honestly, the best seems to just be taking needle nose and cracking it. It's super brittle being so old, so that's really what I've done throughout this process. Let me grab the last couple cracks so you can see what I'm doing here. I think that's enough at this point. All right, here comes the nerve-wracking part. We got to install the gauges. Now, we need to do this without touching them, and obviously you need to like pick them up and stuff or whatever. We need to touch them as little as possible in doing this process. So, deep breaths here. First things we need to do before we actually start installing these is put the stopper on for the tachometer and the oil. So this kit, you can see with these itty stoppers, and the stock gauges have them. You can't reuse them. So we've got to make our own with this. And of course, this awesome kit includes them. Alright, I'm going to start with the smaller gauges and then work to the big ones. This is it. This is kind of the highest risk of this whole thing. Just because we got to get the screws in there without scratching the faces. The screws are small, yes, but the gauge faces are very delicate. So it's all kind of riding on this, folks. What? So good. I am so excited. These are, oh my god. Wow. Even though they're similar to the stock gauges, actually having them side by side, there are more differences than I expected besides just other than the color and the orientation. The font's actually a little different too. So anyway, I'm just pumped. These are awesome. What other gauges have you been interested in? I'm honestly curious because, like I said before earlier in the video, I just changed so many times from this to a bunch of other ones. So is anybody out there that's watched this running a set or have a set picked out? I mean, there are just so many cool ones. Like the Rosa, I was so close to pulling the trigger on that one. Before we put these in the car to just test fit them, let's go in the basement. I've got a couple other things to do before we mock this up. It came out so nice, we're gonna have to do it twice. Now, in all seriousness, I'm extremely happy with how good this came out. But in all seriousness, yeah, I really am happy with how the flocking came out. So I talked with Stefan, and we are gonna do the bottom half of the dash. I got some more flock material to do that, and we're also gonna do a couple of other odds and ends. I just took these off to remove the gauges, and these are the parts that go around. There's also a couple little trim pieces in here that just go over screws and stuff like that for installation. We're gonna do those as well. Well, now that everything is flocked and I've got another mess here behind me, let's go upstairs and test fit those new gauges in the car. We obviously need to put the new dash in, and we'll do that in another episode, but I gotta see what these things look like in the car. So let's go check them out. Would you look at that? I am so happy with that. That looks night and day different in terms of the lights, the soft touch up top. I can't wait for that to be across the entire dash. That looks great. We do have one bulb that looks like it's out. I've kind of chased it around the whole display, kind of moving it. I had one bad contact as well, so that's a little unfortunate. So you're not getting the absolute full effect, but man, I finally have it after, what, 6-7 years of looking at these gauges. I finally have my own. Next episode, what we'll be doing is finally pulling out this dash and working on a couple things behind it. We've actually got a speedo cable that needs to be replaced. It's bouncing all over the place. It's driving me crazy. And my horn button doesn't work. So we're going to try to fix those two things and just kind of tear into the rest of this interior. So thanks again for watching. Subscribe down below. Let me know what your favorite gauges are from RevLimiter, and stay tuned.